is May 14th, 2024, 2 o'clock. We're at the library, and we're going to be talking about 3 things today. Number 1, the bird park. Number 2, when they had trampolines over here. And also when the Pasadena Players used to do programs over here. But I want to make one thing very, very strong plea, not a plea, but anybody that is listening to this, in other words, you got this because you looked on the app that we're on, try very much to be here on the 28th in 2 weeks, because that's when Jim Watson is going to be talking about our involvement in World War II. And believe me, it is going to be a mind blower on your part. Nobody really knows the entire story. Jim made a video of this, a part of it, but he's going to tell the whole thing about the OSS being here and about our involvement with the PBY, the PBY, the Catalina seaplane. But anyway, so we're going to start off with the bird park. Now, where the casino is now, they used to have the Big Sugarloaf and the Little Sugarloaf. The casino is where the Big Sugarloaf used to be, and then where the flagpole is where the Little Sugarloaf used to be. So when the Bannings had the island before Mr. Wrigley, they blew up the Big Sugarloaf, and the rocks that you see in the ocean along the walkway, that is all part, they didn't know what else to do with the rocks, so they just threw them in the ocean. So that was laid out for the original St. Catherine Hotel. Now the St. Catherine Hotel was at Descanso Beach, the other side of where the casino is. And it was built there in 1918. They decided at the last moment not to put it where the Big Sugarloaf was, even though they had blown the rock away, but they put it down at Descanso Beach, which was a much better place for it to be. So now they had this big open area in 1917. Mr. Wrigley purchased the island in 1919. So he in 1920 put in what they called the Sugarloaf Casino. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, the Sugarloaf Casino was much smaller than the present one is. It only had a dance floor. It didn't have a theater as part of it. So when talkies came out in 1927, Mr. Wrigley decided to change from the Sugarloaf Casino to the casino we have now in 1928. It was started in March of 1928, had its grand opening on May 29th, 1929. I am mentioning this because when they put in the regular casino that's there now, Mrs. Wrigley loved the frame of the original Sugarloaf Casino so much that they dragged it up the canyon. It became the bird park.
Oh, wow.
So if you've gone by the bird park on your way to the memorial or just up in that area, you will see the framework. It is now the one that the play school uses for the preschool. They took off all of the wood along the side, all the shingles off the top, covered in chicken wire, and they became what they have now, which is the school for the kids. So anyway, that was the frame. So that's the reason I'm bringing up why I went into the details, so you know that that's the frame of the original casino, the bird park. The bird park was put in 1928. It stayed there until 1966. Now, it was free to the public. Now, Mrs. Wrigley had gone into a coma back in the 19.
Can I ask you just to point at him? Thank you.
In the 1940s, Mrs. Wrigley went into a coma, and she was in a coma for approximately 21 years. It was the longest time at that time that anyone had ever gone into a comatose state and survived. And they've asked me, why did they keep her alive? Mrs. Wrigley had a living trust. She supported the bird park with her money and other activities. As long as she was alive, they were going to get, they were going to be free. They were going to get her money. And as soon as she died, then they were going to get no more money. So that was a horrible reason to keep Mrs. Wrigley alive. But as long as she was alive, even in a comatose state, they were still able to get her money. So the bird park was free. They said it was the largest single bird cage in the history, in the world, the bird park frame.
Thank you very much.
And it had over 15,000 different birds there. Now, if you go up there, you'll see along the side, that is where they would have the different cages. And each cage would have a tile of the particular bird that was there. So when you look around town, you'll see a lot of Catalina tile, which was there from 27 to 37. You'll see all of these exotic birds. Well, they were never here normally or naturally here on the island, but they were up at the bird park. So when the artisans that worked for the tile factory started putting up those beautiful tile of the different birds, people started saying, why don't you manufacture them so we can have them in our homes? So you'll see them around town. You'll see some of them over the where the different buildings are on the front street. You'll see a lot of ones of birds. Well, these were the birds that they had up at the bird park. Now the birds were let loose during the evening, so they could go out and forage and get their own food, and then they would fly back and put back in the cage. And we all had our own, pretty much our own individual bird that we liked to go up. I would ride my bicycle up there, have my lunch, and then go on to the Wrigley Memorial, and then come down the storm drain. So in 1966, they took all the birds out and took them to the Los Angeles Zoo, where that's where they moved all the birds there. Now, as soon as they put in the turnstile for 25 cents each, most islanders refused to pay the 25 cents because we were used to getting it for free while Mrs. Wrigley was still alive. So we didn't go there anymore after the 25 cents admission fee into the bird park. So years later, or a couple of years later, I should say, I went over to the Los Angeles Zoo, and they have a big open area where all the birds are flying free. And so you're able to sit there and look closely at all the birds. Well, this one bird came over to me and landed on my arm. Turned out to be my favorite bird up at the bird park.
Of course.
And the curator of the bird exhibit came over to me and was very upset. He said, "Why are you molesting the birds?" I said, "Tell that to the bird," because the bird came here and landed on my arm. And I told him the story that this was a bird from Catalina.
So did he warm up to your explanation?
No.
No.
I'm sorry, they don't do, that doesn't really work. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the trampolines. believe it or not, we had trampolines over here. Where the Bella is, behind the Bella is where we had these trampolines. If I recall, we had about 4 of them. And they were all on ground level with the padding around the side. I have wonderful movies of, you remember Tony Dow on Leave It to Beaver? He died a few years ago. I have pictures of him doing backflips and whatever. He was very athletic. I think they had to get rid of them because if you went too high or lost your balance, you would go outside of the periphery and be on...
Right on the ground on your head. Where were the trampolines? Where did they set them up?
Behind the Bella.
Okay.
It used to be Scary's, but it's now the Bella. That's where the trampolines were. And they were a lot of fun. We, you know, it's funny, in making this list, I have probably 30 that I'm going to be going through. It really hurts me to realize how many wonderful things we used to have that we don't have anymore. And what bothers me is you keep hearing them saying, we can't do that. Well, at one time we did. One time we had a youth facility. One time we had a senior citizen facility. We'll get to that later, but I just want to let you know that coming up with these, it kind of made me feel a little strange. Now, where the tour plaza is now, where the tour buses come in, before they, when they tore down they had tents. It was, they had a little, why can't I think of the name of the,
Yurts.
Yurts.
huh?
Yurts.
Huh? I can't think of the name of that, where they had all of those little they had these little buildings. If you go to the tour plaza now and you go over to the art area where they have the artwork, the local artwork, that is what the buildings look like. So they tore them down in 1966. So that whole area was opened up. So the Pasadena players would come from Pasadena during the summer. They would have a giant tent and they would put on 3 musicals a summer.
What a great thing to do.
This was back in the 1960s.
Were they the...
It was phenomenal.
When you
Talk
say...
about culture.
When you say Pasadena Players, are they the ones associated with Pasadena Playhouse, which is a very large theater company in Pasadena?
Very famous group.
Very old, that
Over
theater company.
During the summer. And they did this, I think, for only 2 years, from 1967 to 1968.
Folks, we're having a history talk over here. If you felt like coming in and learning a little bit more about Catalina history, or if you have any questions, more than welcome to come over and join us.
They were called the Island Villas. My brain finally kicked in. They were called the Island Villas. And so when they took them down, they then put up this giant tent, and then, as I said, 3 times during the summer. So that would mean each month we would get a different musical.
Nice.
And it was phenomenal.
Do you remember what musicals played?
No. I'm trying to remember. I mean, come on, that was 60 years ago. I think they did the Fantastics, if I'm not mistaken. Don't forget there weren't too many musicals back in the 60s, so you can eliminate everything that's happened since then.
That was kind of
Obviously,
pre-Sondheim.
They didn't do Cats, they didn't do a lot of the ones that they've done since then, but that, I think, I'm almost positive they did.
Welcome. So good to see you.
My
South-Pacific.
chair is
South-Pacific.
ready.
It is ready for you.
South Pacific.
I don't think they did South Pacific.
Oklahoma.
They probably did Oklahoma. Well, I was in Oklahoma when we did our own community chorus group. I played King Arthur when they did Camelot. And
Does not surprise me at all.
Also in Oklahoma. But again, that's So how much more time do we have?
You actually have another 10 minutes if you have other things to
Oh.
say.
I did all that in 5 minutes?
Yes. Choose another one off the list. Your pleasure.
Wow. Okay, let me tell you a funny thing happened about the. We used to do Handel's. I don't know if I mentioned this before. We used to do Handel's Messiah every Christmas in the casino, and it was phenomenal. It was free. It was open to the public, and we did 2 hours of Handel's Messiah. Now, I was over in a block over where I had an office on Catalina, and Margaret Filkley, who was the minister's wife, walked by and she pointed to me. She said, "I want you to sing in Handel's Messiah. We need a bass." And I went up to her afterwards and said, I want to do an audition. She said, "Nobody does an audition." I said, "I have never publicly sung since kindergarten, because in kindergarten I would sing like everybody else, and the teacher would always point up in my area and said, 'There's somebody that's singing off key.' So I would stop singing and everything was fine. I would start singing again, and then the teacher would say, 'There's somebody over there.' So I mouthed my way all through school. Even when I was in choruses, I never sang out loud. I just mouthed it because she told me it was something was wrong with my voice. So I said, I even mouth in the shower. I sing so bad, I even mouth in the shower. So I said, I need an audition. She said, okay. So she's sitting at the piano, and she keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And I keep getting lower and lower and lower. She said, Chuck, I know what the problem was. She said, in your age bracket, when you were in kindergarten, the boys and the girls all sang melody. You were singing harmony. In other words, you had a low voice probably even then. So you didn't sound right because everybody's voice was high and yours was low. So she said that was the problem. So she said, I definitely want you to be in the bass section for Handel's Messiah. Okay, there was only 4 of us singing. 2 of them had to do their solos. There was myself, and then there was a gentleman by the name of Arthur Mooney. Now, Arthur Mooney was older than dirt. He didn't even probably knew he was even there. So when it came time for us to do the chorus for Handel's Messiah, the 2 soloists wouldn't sing because they were trying to protect their voices. So when it came time for ha ha ha, whatever, they would do like this to me, and then I would do it alone. And Arthur Mooney was just sitting there. He wasn't even helping me. So I was singing, I was a chorus of 1. Nobody else was singing the bass section. We only had 4, and I was the only one doing it. So when the whole thing was over, people would come up to me and said, oh, it was great hearing you sing. I said, you're not supposed to hear me sing. I'm part of the chorus. He said, but you were the only one singing. I said, I know, but I wasn't. So anyway, she came up to me and she said, I want you to be King Arthur in Camelot. And I said, you're kidding. She said, we need somebody with a beard, and you're the only one with a beard, and we want you to play King Arthur. So I told her at the very beginning, the only way that I would do this is if the chorus would sing with me on every song. Even when they're not supposed to, I have to have the chorus backing me. because it's bad enough that I was on stage singing Handel's Messiah, but I had the altos, the sopranos, everybody else up there. But now I'm going to be doing okay.
Cool. How many years was the Handel's Messiah performed here? Did they do it for a bunch of years?
Oh no, it was about 5 years.
5 years in a row? And what span would you say that was?
Well, it had to be in the 70s, because that's when I moved back from teaching. So it would have been in the late 70s. So we started in the theater. We worked our way up to the ballroom, which was phenomenal. And then we ended up at the community church. So we went up high and just got low. And then they finally stopped doing it, which I thought was phenomenal.
Did they stop doing it because they couldn't find enough people to participate, or was there just not an audience, or what happened?
Well, it took a lot. It took a lot of rehearsing. It took coordination. People just, as I said, when you look at my list, you realize most of this we stopped doing just because we couldn't find somebody to lead it, to do it. So you had to have volunteers. We were all volunteers. We didn't get paid. It took a lot of rehearsing to be able to get up there and do Handel's Messiah. I finally came to the conclusion, I don't know if you know, but the Hallelujah chorus is at the halfway mark. It really covers Christmas and Easter. And then the story is when they did Handel's Messiah, the king, or whoever he was of Germany, I guess, stood up. So now when they do the Hallelujah chorus, everyone stands up. Well, I have my theory. After 2 hours of sitting there, you get a little edgy. I have a feeling that whoever the king was at the time of Bavaria, wherever, I think he stood up to adjust his underpants. And then that became a tradition. I think all he was doing was like this. And suddenly everyone said, "Oh my gosh, the king's standing up. We have to stand up too." So suddenly everybody's... Well,
if the king stands, everybody must stand.
Regardless of what.
So anyway, so now we're doing Camelot, okay. And of course, I'm King Arthur. Well, the chorus was made up of Arthur Mooney and all of these people who were near death. I mean,
tell us a little more about Arthur Mooney. So what did he do on the island? Who was he?
He was the insurance agent.
Okay.
At the Atwater Hotel when they had different places there.
Shops.
So he did the insurance, Arthur Mooney Insurance. Well, the point was, they had the Knights of the Round Table and their ladies in waiting, or whatever the women were called, in the musical, the maids or whatever. And so they were all paired up. Well, they were old. I mean, we're talking old. Okay. So they insisted on reading the music because they couldn't memorize the music. They were unable to do it. And I said, you can't read the music during a live concert. You're going to have to learn it. And they said, we're not going to do it then because we can't memorize, especially when you want us to back you up on all these songs that you're supposed to do as a solo, like I wonder what the king is doing tonight and everything. We can't do it. So good old Arthur Mooney had a great idea. He said, we have all of these wooden shields. I think they were made of cardboard. He said, we'll put the music, we'll scotch tape the music to the back. And then as we go from one song to the other, all we have to do is pull the music. The ladies in waiting could do that for us while we're holding up our shields. Now,
2
I don't
minutes.
know if you went to see the musical that they just did at the casino. They're showing all the problems you can have.
Yeah.
Well, this one tops all of their problems. Okay, so the problem is we never rehearsed it with the shield. That we finally did it their very first night of the 2 nights that we did the concert. It was up at the high school auditorium. So we had no rehearsal with the shield, but it sounded very logical, right? So
1 minute.
anyway,
1 minute.
that's okay. I mean, this is off the subject anyway, so it's okay. So anyway, so if you know Camelot, I get up to the front of the stage and I sing my not my soliloquy, but I sing my song. I know what my people are, doing to, they're wonder what the king is doing tonight, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, so I'm in the front. I hear the shields go up, and I said, "Good. Now I can sing. I have the chorus behind me." All I could hear was,
You bet. 1 minute. Like 30 seconds.
I turned around in complete panic. I realized we hadn't rehearsed it. It sounded very good theoretically, but all you could, because they're singing directly into
Into the shield.
and turning their pages.